welcome to the Sugar and Spikes podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and anyone ready to uplevel their career in their own damn way. I'm Des. I'm a life coach for women who get that having it all sometimes means having to balance the good and the bad, the sugar and the spikes, and all the in-between.
And I'm Tammy. I'm a therapist, and I'm all about helping as many people as possible to build awareness and make meaningful changes in their lives. I'm also dedicated to diversity and inclusion and increasing access to mental health care.
Between the two of us, we have 4 master's degrees and thousands of hours helping people develop balance, confidence, and clarity on their terms. So let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sugar and Spikes podcast. For those of you that do not know, the last week in June is kind of a pretty fucking epic week. It seems to be year by year.
July?
That's what I said.
That's not what
completely
you
what I said.
What you said. Okay, it's exactly what you
That's
said.
completely what I said. The last week of July. We're this isn't great podcast form in the fact that we're dating our episode and the fact that it's going to be released probably in September. But you know, it's all good. Anyways, last week of July, as I said,
As you said.
is kind of epic. The last weeks of July have been things of note in that 2 years ago today, according to Facebook, my husband and I were flying first class to Europe.
Yeah.
And that was a fucking trip of a lifetime.
I remember that.
Mama had a buzz on before we took off.
Yeah.
Like, I walked on the airplane. They did not miss a step and had champagne. I think I had like 3 mimosas before we were told to fasten our seatbelts.
I myself have never experienced first class, so I'm relegated to coach in the back.
So that happened. That happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then this time last year, we were all getting our feet on the ground with moving.
That's right. I think we've been here.
This is like week 54.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like, I think it was around this time last year where I was on the phone with my credit card company because my credit card had been locked because I was buying all the things and they wouldn't let a purchase for a washer and dryer go through. And I could not think of like a security answer. And I was just like crying, like, I just want my washer.
I remember this well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was sleeping in an empty house. My husband hadn't made it out here yet.
I think this was the week they made it.
Something, yeah. It was not that there was no furniture. And guys, my house is like over 100 years old. There was there was construction dust because it's been redone, right? So I was like living in a state of construction dust and creaky wood floors, and that was it.
Mm-hmm, with like a pillow and a blanket.
A blanket I bought from Target.
We love you, Target.
Yeah. Target, if you're listening,
we love you.
Let's talk sponsorships. Actually, I've been getting these like ads from Target, like to be a Target influencer.
Ooh.
I know, right?
Oh, I love Target.
I feel like that's how you know you've made it in a certain level.
Yeah.
I did get the go ahead to be an Amazon influencer.
Nice.
So, you know.
Things are happening.
Just saying.
Pat yourself on the back. That came out really sarcastic, but I didn't mean it that way.
Good job, Des. Okay. And then this week, I have not had first flight trips. I have not.
Mm-mm.
I have not found myself living in an empty new place to live or new zip code.
Nope. Same zip code.
Same. I'm going to be in the zip code for a minute.
A blessing and a curse.
Yeah, you know.
As so many things are.
But it's been still one of, this is my life. How did I get here? What does the next chapter look like? And I think for you too.
Yeah, it's a time of transition for sure. For sure. So I finished up school.
Yay! By the time this airs, she will be doctor.
I will be.
I keep telling her that I'm never calling her that. I will refer to her as such, but I will never call her
me that. You call me doctor.
My friends will call me doctor. They won't.
They won't.
If you're in a PhD program or a PsyD program, hell, I'm thinking even half the MDs that come out now, no one's getting called doctor.
No, you can just give up on that right now.
My primary, he wanted me to call him Matt. I didn't because there are too goddamn many Matts in the world. So I never called him anything.
I called you.
I came up with some very creative ways to get around using his last name because it was awful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Says the queen of the awful last names. Anyways, if it just as a forewarning, folks, if you're in a advanced program and hope that people will call you doctor, and that's one of the reasons you're doing it, give up now.
I know. It's false. That's a false hope.
Yeah.
And yes, I will be done. So I have finished all my requirements. I'm just waiting for the school to give me the lovely piece of paper, which is going to happen really soon.
Very soon.
I'm pretty excited about it. I'm glad to be done over that 5 years of, I don't want to call it trauma because I feel like that cheapens like really traumatic things, but
hell. 5 years of hell.
It was tough. Like, no joke. So I'm kind of going through a transition of coming out of all of that and kind of realizing everything that happened to me all along the way that I kind of pushed aside and said, like, all right, well, that happened and I'm moving on because I mean, from my perspective, and that's not to say it's objectively true, but from my perspective, I didn't have time to stop. So there's a lot of pressure on me and pressure I put on myself, but also like real life things that there are lots of people that depend on me. So I didn't have time to be like, I'm going to take a semester off. Like that wasn't a thing. And so kind of trying to just consistently push through to make myself a good candidate for internship, to finish my dissertation and get all that done so that I'd be done on time.
Yeah. And we were talking with a friend of Sugar and Spikes. I haven't figured out how to like play these like plugs anyways. We were talking with
we're still figuring that out.
We were talking with a stylist that we know, and a stylist that we love, and someone who's been on the podcast not multiple times yet, but I guarantee you another one of her episodes is coming up.
Yep.
We were talking with Peyton Dale of the Peyton Project.
We love you.
Peyton, we love you. Come on the show whenever you want, all the time. And she had some very fascinating insights for, I think, both of us and Tammy specifically around what, like, powering on actually means and looks like. Because I think, like, and not to steal the power that like Peyton put into the situation that you experienced and everything, but to like kind of broaden it. Like we all kind of put ourselves through not necessarily traumas, but places that would develop adjustment disorders.
But traumatic things.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially as entrepreneurs. Like as entrepreneurs, we're always looking for the biggest, the best, the next level, the next state. Like, we very rarely give ourselves time to be okay in the moment. And when I say moment, I don't mean, like, the next 90 seconds. Like, when I say moment, I mean the where am I in the world?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And
kind of with our conversation we were having today, too.
And it was one of those things where Peyton was laying out all the things that Tammy was doing. Like, so Tammy built her family in grad school.
Yeah.
Not in grad school, but in school. And then grad school.
Well, mostly in grad school. But yeah.
Built the family and then did a huge move and then was doing all of that stuff. And then me, as the ever caring best friend, was like, hey, let's start a business. You're not doing much, right?
You have enough. You finished your dissertation. Let's put something in that space.
Yeah. It's cool. You got all the time. And just like really pointed out all the demands that were happening and all the demands
and the demands that have happened in the past that I really didn't have enough space for. Like the way she put it, I was like, oh shit. Yeah. Like that was a lot and is a lot.
that,
Yeah.
like, without getting into too much detail, and I really, guys, one thing that we're constantly juggling, constantly learning is like the level of privacy and the level of transparency in the
Mhm.
podcast. So I think, like, to just kind of make it clear and accessible is there were new lives there over the course, like 5 years, right? Like, what happens in
What
5 years?
happens in 5 years?
New lives, deaths, moves.
Illnesses,
Like, think about your last 5 years.
all the things.
Go there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plus grad school.
Plus grad school.
And I feel like some people give me the side eye when I say this, but at the very least, first year grad school. So I was in grad school 3 years.
Mhm.
And I'm not military. I've never been military. I come from a military family. And I say, year one of grad school, I can only assume is like boot camp. In the, you lose the sleep, you eat when you can eat, and the people you go through it with, you're going to be like family for life.
Yeah. I mean, I actually have been through boot camp, basic training. It's similar in a lot of ways, except it goes on for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, basic training goes on. Well, the one I went through was a little over 13 weeks. So 13 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
1 year.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was thinking about is
You
like,
never sleep.
you never sleep, and you have all the other demands on your time.
Yeah.
So like when you go off to basic training, at least for me, I was obviously single at the time, but that was all I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to worry about people that depended on me. I didn't have to worry about rent. I didn't have to worry about my car payment. I didn't have to worry about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in grad school, none of that stuff goes away. It's
No.
all still there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can think of it too, like if you don't connect with grad school, like think of maybe you did an internship, or maybe
Graduate and looking for a new job.
looking for a new job, or the first job you got that was like just, killing you to the bone.
Or like when you're
working you to the
starting
bone.
your business.
Yeah, that too.
like-
All those pressures don't go away,
Mhm.
right? You still have to somehow manage that and deal with that. Or in my case, you don't deal with it.
Yeah.
You just kind of, like, I think for me, thinking about what she said to me, like what I really did was like, okay, bring it down to a level where I can just put a box around it and set it aside,
Mhm.
and then just keep going.
Yeah, which is something that, like, I know I've kind of taught to clients and stuff in terms of 4 square breathing, like picture all the things that are happening and like you put them in the box and then you can contain it and it's fine, and then you go off and you do things. But I mean, the step after that is look at your fucking storage shed. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on with those boxes? Because they're shitting them.
And they're piling up.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
fast.
I know for me, they really had
Yeah.
quite a lot. So now that I'm done, I've noticed that I have more kind of mental energy
Mm-hmm.
to spend, physical energy too,
Mhm.
to spend thinking about some of those things that I've set aside for quite a while. And
Yeah.
I've noticed that they've come back around. And so how am I going to
Mhm.
deal with that? How am I going to manage it? And that kind of stuff.
And I think even like if we're talking transitions, even moving from one thing to another can really show you how much mental energy something was taking up.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've personally been going through a significant time of transition. There's been no first class fights. There's been no new house. But I did, maybe 5-6 weeks ago at this point, shifted jobs.
Yep.
And recently, these last couple weeks, once the waters have settled a bit, I found myself saying multiple times, I didn't realize how much energy that was taking.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize, I mean, I knew I was saying I'm tired all the time. I'm so tired. I'm done. I had no space for the things. And there was a part of it where it almost felt like it was a cop out almost. And now I find myself able to take on so many more things,
Yeah.
which is also, it sounds like complaining about privilege, but I don't know what to do with this energy now. Like, it's finding that you're a new person. You
Yeah, and what
have
does
more
that mean?
space.
Like,
What
what
does
do I
that look
do?
like? What
Yeah.
do I do with this? Like Tammy and I were talking beforehand, and I told her I feel like I'm on watch,
Mhm.
and I know that there are other things happening in camp that I need to go do, and I'm on watch, so I can't.
Yeah.
I have this awareness, I have this energy, I have this moment of being awake, and
Feeling stuck at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that very rarely do we talk about transition in that idea of being stuck, or in the idea of giving the person that you were space in order to pave way for the person that you're going to be.
Yeah. Or even devoting your energy like so specifically to one thing
Mhm.
that trying to transition off that or trying
Mhm.
to switch off that kind of seems like an impossible task,
Mhm.
right? Like you were like, I'm just on watch for this one thing. And I know I have to like disengage and kind of talk about these other things and show up for these other things. And yet I feel like I can't. I'm just not, I don't like the word fixated, but like you're fixed on it, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing you're worried about, concerned about, consumed by. And no matter what you do, it's just like everything brings you back to that.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I had something that I was going to say and I totally lost it.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. You make it. Oh, the topic of identity.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you can really speak to this in terms of being a grad student for 5 years. I know I dealt with it once I left grad school 3 years later. The idea of I'm a student, I've been a student. Like I went from undergrad straight to grad school. I went from high school to community college. Like I graduated 6 months early and I still went straight to community college. Like I was a student.
Mhm.
And then from there, moved up to Portland, continued going to school, went to U of P, didn't take a gap year, went to grad school. The first time that I wasn't a student, I want to say I was 25. And the idea of when you're in when you're in a large enough transition, maybe not even large enough, but when you're in a transition, you're dealing with the I was this person and now I'm going to be this person, and what does that look like?
Mhm.
And for entrepreneurs, that's rather common because the goalpost is always changing,
Mhm.
you know? Hey guys, Des here. I'm just popping in with a quick message for all of you entrepreneurs and side hustlers out there. Are you ready to grow your business so you have real influence, so that when you speak, people don't just listen, they actually do something? Do you want to be able to share your message, product, or service in a way that feels truly authentic to you so you can stand out from the crowd? Are you ready to finally be a true leader in your industry? If so, then it's time you signed up for the free Legendary Leadership Challenge. In just 5 days, you will be able to define your leadership style, develop a whole new way to view all the things on your to-do list so you're not overwhelmed, create consistent standout content, increase your community engagement and connections, like real, actual connections, and redefine self-care so you can keep doing all the things you're made to do. If you're ready to rise up as the legendary leader you know you are, then head on over to DesireeW.com and click on the Legendary Leadership Challenge and sign up today. And when you sign up for the challenge, you also get 5 free days to all of the content in the Legendary Leadership Society. Guys, it's nuts. So, if you're ready to learn how to lead your way, take the Legendary Leadership Challenge today.
Well, even going from like, I'm a corporate person with a side hustle
Mm-hmm.
to I am an entrepreneur for full time. What does that mean about me? What does that say about me?
Mm-hmm.
How does that make me different than I
Mm-hmm.
was before? How do I express that?
Mm-hmm.
Even in our style, our look, our hair, how we present ourselves, what
Mm-hmm.
we call ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things, right?
Yeah.
Which says my identity is profoundly different than it was before.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is one of those pieces where preparation can help. If you see a change coming, addressing it before it happens, if it's possible, I think being prepared can be one of the best things you can do.
I agree, and I think I would also challenge that a little bit to say like very often, I mean, even moving out here, that was a prepared transition
Mm-hmm.
and difficult for me in ways that I didn't expect.
Mhm.
And so I was prepared in certain ways, but not in
Mhm.
others. And I know that I kind of struggled in the beginning because of that.
Mhm.
So I think you can prepare as best you can. Sometimes transitions happen when you can't prepare.
Mhm.
And I think there's this other idea, I've been thinking about this lately, that like we think that transition, like I know being for myself a goal oriented person,
Mhm.
that I'm like, okay, I just need to get to the other side of this and be done with
Yeah.
it and close the door. And really, the longer I go on, the more I realize that things are really a process,
Mhm.
and it's not about going through them and coming out the other side and being like, like all done, like um I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but just being all done and this idea of everything being kind of neatly tied up with this definitive endpoint.
Mhm.
I don't think it's like that. I think it's like you have the experience, and the experience can change you in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And yet it's not about getting to the end of it, because there's no end.
Mhm.
It's just kind of adjusting as you go and continuing to experience the process of your life,
Mhm.
you know? I don't know. That might sound pretty melancholy. I've been in a melancholy place lately.
No, I think that makes sense. I think it speaks to this idea of, oh God, this may make it darker, but you're not just in a place of transition, your life is a place of transition.
Yeah.
This constant forward motion. Then how do we reconcile that with being okay in the moment?
Well, I think for me, helping me be okay in the moment is like, this is what's going on right now. And
Mhm.
it's not about getting to the end of it, it's about experiencing it.
Mhm.
And so when I let myself experiencing, because I think when I'm trying to get to the end, I'm kind of fighting it all along. Like, when is it going to end? Why am I not there yet? Why haven't I
Mhm.
accomplished whatever I think this transition should look like?
Mhm. Too forward focused.
Too forward focused. And so if I take a minute and I breathe, or I ground, or I'm just like, you know what? This is what's happening now.
Mhm.
And just be okay with that. Not liking it, right? Because we talked about that
Mhm.
before, but being okay with it
Mhm.
and being like, okay, I can deal with this. I can manage this. Let's experience this for what it's worth and see how
Mhm.
it feels. I think for me, that helps me,
Mhm.
but that's purely my own, like, N of one anecdotal kind of experience.
I think that makes sense. The idea of being okay with the now, and you were kind of challenging me around that earlier, where I was kind of complaining around things, and then you were looking for like rock hard evidence because I was like, no joke. Earlier today, I was in tears and I was like, my world's crashing, and Tammy was like, but is it really?
In a nicer way, God, you make me sound so awful. Is it really, Des? Is it really?
I
You
mean,
make me sound terrible. They're like, wow, she's a therapist. That's terrible.
but you're not my
That's
therapist.
fair, but I'm still an empathetic, empathic person. Um, well, I think for me, like, I think sometimes we can have these feelings. I think the idea
Mhm.
that I was trying to get at in a nice way is that is that we can have these feelings of
Mhm.
being stuck, of being trapped. And yet when we can take a look at kind of the more concrete, like,
Mhm.
what is happening now
Mhm.
that's making you feel that way, then more often than not you hear, and this is what you said, well, that's not really happening now. It's just that
Yeah.
I feel that
And I think
way.
for entrepreneurs, transition sucks so much more because we're dependent on ourselves. And that's
Yeah.
like, we've talked about that so many times at this point, and I don't want to keep bringing it up. But as an entrepreneur and as someone who doesn't just show up into the office at 9 a.m. on Monday, it's I feel like things are out of control. I feel like all of this stuff is going on, and what the fuck do I do about it? And yes, things aren't objectively burning right now, but I'm in like this yellow zone and the alarms are starting to go off. And what do I do?
Yeah, I would challenge you that that's different than what you said today. You're like, being in a yellow zone is very different than I'm in the red zone and my life is falling apart. And it can feel that way. It can
Mhm.
feel super intense. I'm not in any way trying to say like that isn't how you're feeling,
Mhm.
but sometimes trying to get away from like this feeling of the world ending versus
Mhm.
what is happening right now can kind of help balance that black or white, all or
Mhm.
nothing, to get into a place where you feel a little bit less frozen.
Mhm.
Because if you're in the red zone all the time,
You can't move.
you can't
You
move.
can't
You're
move.
just stuck there.
Yeah.
You can't take any effective action.
Mhm.
And so, kind of trying to pull you in, like I've talked about, like coming in off those edges a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Because the more we can come in off the edges, the less frozen we are.
Mhm.
And so, the less frozen you are, then the more effective action you can take to kind of
Mhm.
feel like you're getting a little bit more in control of the things that are happening to you, or a little
Mhm.
bit more able to cope with the things that you can't control.
Yeah.
So, and you're right, it's hard. We say it all the time. It's hard when you're an entrepreneur because it's just you. Like,
Mhm.
and social support is such a vital, key piece
Mhm.
of coping with extreme things.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can say it too often.
No.
Because if someone jumped in on this episode, I want you to hear it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
important. And so, because you don't have that social support, you have to be a little more intentional about where you find it, so
Mhm.
you don't end up frozen in the edges,
Yeah.
feeling like things are happening to you that you're not in control of and not okay with and you
Mhm.
can't deal with.
Yeah. And I'm on social media all the time talking about either in real life events, like going out and connecting with folks, or even, I mean, connecting with people that you feel like you may click with on the socials and having conversations. And creating ways to have that social support is key. And sometimes those ways come about in methods that you wouldn't expect.
Mhm.
Some of my closest friends that are entrepreneurs that I rely on for support besides Tammy are folks that I've connected with on the podcast.
Yeah.
Not in the I need social support, so I'm going to make a podcast so I connect with people type of way, but these types of when you have conversations and when you make like authentic connection. I feel like everybody knows what authentic connection is versus awkward connection.
Yes.
Um,
I hope. I
I
don't
would
want to make
hope.
assumptions. If you're someone who doesn't know that, let's talk.
Yeah.
Send us a message.
Send us a message and we'll help you
Please,
figure
we'll
it out.
help.
But I've had those conversations and then it becomes someone to reach out to. So connection can come from the most unexpected places, the times you're least like looking for it, all of that stuff, and being open to it and knowing that others are A, looking for the same thing, and B, willing to be a support. I think especially among entrepreneurs, we're a
Yeah.
very special breed in that we're fiercely independent and we're fiercely supportive
Yeah.
because we get that no one knows what it's like other than us,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think that like you really spoke to something that I was thinking about while you were talking, which is that entrepreneurs are risk takers. They're out of the box thinkers. They like to do things in fiercely independent ways in their own
Mhm.
ways. So why wouldn't it make sense that your social support might come in these kind of uncharacteristic or novel ways, like
Mhm.
connecting with someone on the podcast where you're like,
Mhm.
wow, we really connected, and then being able to form an authentic connection. And it doesn't have to be in person. I mean,
Mhm.
the internet is great, right? It
Yeah.
makes us all connected. So you can find community
Mhm.
in places that you couldn't before. So if we can't find community here, because it's been a little difficult
Mm-hmm.
to kind of connect sometimes,
Mhm.
then we can find it in our online spaces,
Yeah.
which are really, really good.
And on top of that, the other piece is it's gone.
Okay.
What were you saying? Like I know what you were saying, but if you
What I was saying?
yeah.
So I was saying that like social support and community can
Mhm.
come in unexpected ways, and you would expect that from entrepreneurs who are dynamic and forward thinking and out of the box thinking, but that's what I said.
God, I had a point. Oh, it's gone. It's really gone.
It's okay.
Okay.
We can come back to it. Everything comes back around, you know?
Yeah, I
No
need to stop
pressure.
thinking about it.
No pressure.
So let me channel my inner caveman. Social support, good.
That's our message. Social support, good. No matter where you find it.
Isolation, bad. Yeah, and
we're done with the podcast. Our
and
mission
that's
is
it.
done
And
here.
that's it. We're done. We cannot top ourselves ever. But here's what I was gonna say. That idea of networking and connecting with other people that view things in similar ways and everything, it's very much a key or a nod from the corporate environment in networking events and in industry events. You know, I come from a very, very niche industry.
Right.
I've talked about that my roots are in fintech, which is true, but it's more of a niche in fintech. And within that industry, no one gets that industry like that industry. Just like if you were, I'm trying to think of something else.
No one gets grad students like grad students.
Yeah. So being able to find folks that have that same kind of perspective, it's not a new idea. It's not weird. I think, especially if you're reaching out to entrepreneurs, most of them, I mean, the demographics are changing, but most entrepreneurs have their roots in corporate America where they've done networking events. They know what professional connection looks like. That leads the way to more personal connection.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Like, folks get it and they know what working relationships look like. Like, there's one gal that I connected with on the podcast where we're talking about doing like a group mastermind together, which is going to be very exciting. And you'll hear one of the first announcements on this podcast. But she and I both come from corporate, and we know what the connecting over drinks and being like, oh, we work well together looks like, and knew how to take that energy and channel it into something professional.
Yeah. Like a collaboration.
Exactly. So I feel like sometimes folks are like, well, I don't want people to think I'm weird for wanting to connect or talk, which is definitely something I dealt with, especially when I was really dealing with like the social anxiety piece, like before I was decent at interneting. So I get that. And it's not, you're not jumping into a Shark Tank. You're not jumping into like an area where people are just going to like eat you alive.
Although it feels that way.
It
Like,
does.
it feels that way for me, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm finally like gonna hop on social media for a minute, and like I really haven't done that. I mean, I haven't done that. Like, just I haven't. And it does feel like jumping into a Shark Tank, and so it's important in those times to have someone say, no, you can do this. Process that a little bit. Show you the ins and outs and kind of get you started.
Yeah.
Kind of hold your hand a little bit. Not hold your hand in like an infantile way, but like hold your hand and support you and say like, you can do this. This is a way you want to grow, right? Because like what I'm assuming is like with networking, people are like, I really want to do this. And yet it feels so threatening and scary.
Yeah.
And one thing I think we were talking about today is like growth doesn't happen in your comfortable places.
Exactly.
So it's about like getting out there and pushing yourself, but not so far that you freeze, but like just like that growing edge, that leading edge where you can continue to kind of push yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's important to have support in those times to like get you out there, right? So like tiptoe out there, kind of get your feet wet and experience it and know that there's someone there like backing you up who is in your corner just being like, yeah, you can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to just piggyback off that really quick, the things that were scary or the things that may be scary are going to be the things that aren't so scary in 6 months. Like, I know that's very trite. I know that's very cliche. I know that you've read that probably a million times, a million different ways. And the core truth is still true. Like, at the very least, if we look at it from a scientific level, we become desensitized to shit.
I was just going to say it's like exposure, right? Like we know anxiety, we know from science that anxiety will go up And there's a limit to how high it will go and how long it will stay there. And then it will start to come back down. So sticking with it through that initial increase, through that sustaining point at the top, and letting it come back down where you're like, okay, I kind of got this. I think I know what I'm going, like what I'm doing. It's not so bad. Like it's not as scary as I thought. And feeling like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah. And I mean, really, that kind of sums up what transition is, oddly enough. It's breaking out into the unknown, managing it to the best of your ability until you kind of realize it's going to be okay. And it becomes your new normal.
Yeah. So if you're feeling sad, scared, whatever, anxious, uncertain, know that you can feel that way and be brave at the same time, and you can make it.
Yeah,
you can do it.
Because we've all gone through it,
and we're pulling for you.
Yeah, you
can do it. You've gone this far. I know it.
It'll be good.
We believe in you. I know it sounds so cheesy, but I do. I believe in people. I believe that people are stronger than they think. I believe that they can go through some really incredibly trying and painful things and still come out at the end and be great and live their best lives.
It's true. She's obnoxiously optimistic.
I am. It's true. Or why would I do what I do?
I was going to say, and I wouldn't keep around if it was any other way, because, I mean, we've all met me, right?
It's like the yin to your yang.
And then it's like your business can be great and life is shit.
And it can still be great. You know, you all need to have that one person say, yeah, it's really difficult and it could be horrible, but it could be amazing.
Could be really good. It could be really good.
And it could be.
Well, and it does get to be. So I will say one thing that is that may strike people as like shocking and uncharacteristic is one of my go-to affirmations that I say probably multiple times every goddamn day is it's going to be better than amazing because it already is.
I like that.
Because it makes me like check in with like where I am and where like 18-year-old me thought I'd be and everything. And it's like, yeah, I wouldn't have written this life. That's pretty cool. So if it's this cool now, all right, let's keep going.
Makes you take a long view.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that's kind of one of my core things. It's going to be amazing because it already is.
Love it.
So on that note, we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, friends.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Sugar and Spikes podcast. If you guys like what we're doing, please subscribe, leave a rating, share it with your friends. It would mean the world to us. If you're not a huge fan of what we're doing, maybe share it with someone you think may like it. If you want to keep up to date on all of the Sugar and Spikes shenanigans, get the behind-the-scenes tour of life and business as a millennial female entrepreneur, then follow me across all the social medias. I'm Des W, Ms. MBA, DEZWMSMBA, across all the platforms, your Facebooks, your Twitters, your Instagrams. I'm there, same name. And don't forget, if you're ready to rise up as a legendary leader, you know you are, then head on over to DesireeW.com and sign up for the free 5-day Legendary Leadership Challenge. Also, I want to thank Forget the Whale for use of their song Move Along as our theme music. And guys, remember to stay unavailable for fuckery.